Welcome back to Conscious Construction, the Conscious Enneagram podcast. I'm your host, Abby Robbins. And I have to say, I am really enjoying being back to podcasting. It's been a couple weeks now, and I've actually done a lot of interviews, and I am, going through and editing and just being in the flow of it. And you know what? I really like it. I've missed this. I'm glad to be back. And if you're also enjoying this, I'm just going to say real quick, don't forget to leave a rating and a review in your podcast app. If you're on YouTube, do the like button, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And if you're enjoying this, feel free to send it to a friend. Nothing beats word of mouth, and it's a wonderful way to help the podcast grow. And the more the podcast grows, the easier it is for me to continue working on it. So all that to say, I'm here with a good friend of mine for this interview today by the name of Gina Chavez. Gina Chavez is a Latin Grammy nominee, internationally acclaimed recording artist, wife, and philanthropist. Born in Austin, she is a 16-time Austin Music Award winner. Gina's first all-Spanish language album, Que Manda, was nominated for a 2020 Latin Grammy in Best Pop Rock, making them the third Latin-born in the continental U.S. to ever be nominated in the history of the category, and the first queer Texan. Gina's NPR Tiny Desk concert has more than 1.4 million views. She is featured on Brené Brown's hit podcast, Unlocking Us, for which she co-wrote the theme music. Gina tours internationally and is a cultural ambassador with the U.S. State Department, and also runs Niñas Arriba, a college fund Gina and their wife founded for young women in gang-dominated El Salvador. Now, this is obviously a very impressive bio, and I am so thrilled for you to hear a little bit more from Gina about her life, their work, and what it's like for them being an Enneagram 9. Now, this is one of the things we talk about in the podcast, that Gina is the kind of person, if you didn't know them very well, you would likely assume that they were a type 3 because of the kind of success that they've found in their career over the years. But I think it's always important to highlight that there are things out here that we experience that are not type specific things, but are instead human specific things. Being an artist doesn't make you a 4. Being successful doesn't make you a 3. Being conflict avoidant doesn't make you a 9. These are not type things. They are human things. And Gina shows us a lot of human things, but also plants it firmly in this position of understanding themselves as an Enneagram 9. You'll hear her talk throughout about how she didn't necessarily have the same kind of drive and motivation that 3s often have, and that she felt more a go with the flow kind of energy, more of a tuning in to a kind of intuitive guidance that is honestly much more relaxed than 3s usually operate in the world. So it's interesting to see the juxtaposition. We might have this picture of 3, but that's not always the case. So before we dive in, a couple announcements. This coming Monday, if you're listening on the day this episode comes out, is my Enneagram office hours. That's November 3rd, 6 p.m. Central Time. It's a free event. Anyone can join. If you've got questions about the Enneagram, don't ask ChatGPT. Don't do it. That's awful. That makes my heart sad. Ask me at this free event. First Monday of the month, 6 p.m. Central Time, 6 to 8. Registration link is down below in the show notes. And as a reminder, the Enneagram Expedition is now open for registrations. It will stay open until December 18th. So be sure and check that out. The Enneagram Expedition is my year-long cohort where we're going to dive into the real work that the Enneagram offers us. Yes, we'll be studying and learning about the Enneagram, but then we're going to take what we learn and we're going to immediately put it to work into our lives. This is an incredible format. I love teaching in this format because it offers us the opportunity to build real community and really flesh out what I consider the three-legged stool that I wrote about in my book, The Conscious Enneagram. The three-legged stool of the things we need if we want the wisdom of the Enneagram to change our lives. practice, lineage, and community. And the cohort has all three of those by design. So be sure and check it out. There's lots of good information in the links down below, and let's dive into the interview. All right, welcome back to Conscious Construction, the Conscious Enneagram podcast. I'm your host, Abby Robbins, and today I am joined by the one and only Gina Chavez.
What's up? I like the countdown. That was very cute.
Yeah, right.
Y'all, there's a countdown.
There's a countdown before we get started. It lets you know, so everybody's prepared and ready.
Yes.
So Gina, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I born and raised in Austin. I am a musician. I'm a songwriter, play guitar, play other instruments, like this little instrument called a charango. I sing in English and Spanish. I have a Latin Grammy nomination. I'm also the current president of the Texas chapter of the Recording Academy, which is a volunteer elected leader position. So that's exciting. And then my wife and I have a foundation for young women in El Salvador that we started many years ago after living there and working with nuns in like a gang-dominated part of San Salvador, or suburb outside of San Salvador. And yeah, that's me.
That's amazing. I feel like you just laid out this incredible, which road are we going to go down first? So, I mean, I actually know you through family friends, and we've connected several different times here in Austin. But I would assume most people know you as a musician and a songwriter. And you started off, you were playing it very cool. Like, it's a big deal that you have a Latin Grammy nomination, right? Like,
yeah.
You've toured all over the world. Tell me a little bit about, where did you start with this? How did this happen for you?
Yeah, I think, it's been a long road. I think the short version is I grew up in Austin public schools, and I was really fortunate to go to Lamar and McCallum. And so McCallum is now the Fine Arts Academy, and I was there back in my day. It wasn't the Fine Arts Academy, but obviously it had a history of having really great fine arts, and so therefore, now it is known as the Fine Arts Academy. But I was, I got to be a recipient of that legacy. Mm-hmm. And, it's like I didn't really have formal training with my voice, but I had public choir programs. And so that's kind of where it started. Yeah. I think at age 12, when I was in middle school, I did not want to get into choir. I call it the pre-Glee years before choir was cool.
Yeah.
And, and so I did not want to go into choir. I was always wanted to be in art because art was so cool. And my mom, one year I couldn't get it, my schedule didn't work out. My mom was like, well, Gina, you always like singing. You're always singing around the house. And I was like, ew, choir's for nerds. And then I got into choir and I realized, I was like, oh, I'm really good at this, because I was able to hear my peers and kind of I don't know, it was a really interesting thing that I think, it's both a blessing and a curse, I think, for a kid to kind of discover something that you're really good at. And mostly I think it's a great thing, when you're young to kind of discover something that you love and that you're great at. So I dove into choir, had a great time. And then, when I got to college, I kind of knew I didn't want to study music. I never, I knew it. I felt like it would kill it for me.
Yeah.
And so I was a journalism major at UT. Figured out my junior year that I was like, I do not want to be a PAC journalist in DC or really go into any kind of job. I was like, journalism, actually, I don't want to do that.
And now I have this degree.
Yeah, now I have this degree. But I will say that I gained a lot of skills that actually have helped me immensely in all aspects of my life. So anyway, I ended up working in nonprofits for 20 years while building a music career. And, I picked up a guitar while I was in college. I was 18 when I started playing guitar. Immediately kind of took to the rhythmic. I feel like I'm very adept at rhythms.
Yeah.
And so the rhythmic quality of a guitar just really kind of worked for me.
Yeah.
I cut my teeth on praise and worship songs, leading praise and worship.
Oh, yeah.
At my old high school youth group. I was a leader in my high school youth group, even into college. And then I kind of started getting more involved at the Catholic Center at UT, and that's where I met my now wife at the Catholic Center. So that's a whole other road we
Yeah,
could
we're
go
gonna
down.
have to go down that road for sure.
There's so many roads. Anyway, and so, that's kind of long story longer. It's just like I kind of have fallen into music, if that makes
Mm,
any sense. There's never been like I want to be a, like this is what I want to do,
yeah.
which I think is a lot of my, like, as a nine, I understand
Mm,
that I'm like, I've never been super ambitious.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think, as I've started to like deprogram and work through a lot of stuff, I am more ambitious because
Mm,
I can now see things like what I want, and
yeah.
which, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, so I think, 2010, we went to El Salvador, kind of stopped our lives. That was life changing. Came back, and that was kind of the time where I was like, okay, now I'm going to do music full time and get a part time job. So I
Mm,
still had work, and I was working in nonprofits and communications, but that was the moment where I was like, all right, music is now my full-time job. And
yeah.
the other thing is part-time. And then I had a part-time job up until 2022 was when I finally, so recently was
Yeah.
when I finally quit the day job.
Yeah.
But up, in that whole point, like in that whole section, I've been doing a lot of touring. I worked with the State Department. I've gone to 14 different countries as an ambassador, had the Latin Grammy nomination, have done some work with Brené Brown. Like there's been some really cool things, Tiny Desk concerts. So there's been
Yeah.
some like really high, amazing moments. And I'm also a fully independent artist. And so I feel like there's a lot there that I feel really blessed to have kind of achieved as
Mhm,
somebody
mhm.
who, it's basically been my wife and I,
Yeah.
doing all this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah. Again, like so many different roads we can go
yeah,
down
yeah.
for follow-up questions. I am really curious though, like to stay on the music topic, like what was that like to have that moment where you said, okay, now I'm shifting focus and this is where I want to put my time, energy, attention, etc. Like what was that like for you? How did you get to that point?
Yeah, so it's kind of like chunks of about 10 years. So I had been working for 10 years full time at a nonprofit while kind of just like playing in coffee shops, and like after college. Yeah, so 2007 was my first album. And that really, like, it seems so silly because, again, I've just never been like super ambitious about it. So it's like I would have all these songs and I'd play in coffee shops for free. We'd have like
Yeah.
60 people in a coffee shop to come see me play. And I'm not charging a cover charge, and you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
people are coming to see, and then they're like, "Hey, when are you going to put out an album?" And I was like, "Oh, is that what I do? Okay." And
Yeah.
like I grew up in Austin. Like people think, "Oh, you grew up in Austin, like it was in the water." And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
"Well, not really." I
Not
don't
for
know.
me.
I wasn't drinking that water. So it just kind of, everything has come kind of like slowly.
Yeah.
And anyway, to your question, I think, I'd been doing it for long enough at that point when we left town, and also stopping our lives. That was kind of a big deal because I grew
Yeah.
up in Austin. I've always lived in Austin. And aside from 4 months in Argentina when I was a student at UT and did a study abroad program, which really changed my life. That's a whole other thing. But like that's kind of where Latin music entered my, you
Mm,
know, being. Anyway, and so I think when we went to El Salvador, the stopping of our lives was a big deal.
yeah.
That was like the hardest part, but it also provided it's like all of a sudden we were in a different country, speaking a different language with a very different,
Mhm.
I'd
Mhm.
never, like, we'd never been there. It was like whole new customs and culture and all that kind of stuff. So I think that provided a lot of, I don't know, just kind of a foundation for something different.
Yeah.
As somebody who'd always grown up in Austin, and this is, it's like I know everything about
Yeah.
this place. And so coming back from that, I think allowed me to be like, all right, I'm doing it. Like
Mm.
music's it, and then I release a song and then immediately get picked up by NPR. And
Yeah.
then that led to like Tiny Desk, like all these kinds of things started to happen where it was kind of like universe is saying, yes, do it.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that like you have this kind of understanding that like it wasn't self-motivated in the way that I think a lot of artists are, right? A lot of artists are
Mm.
like grinding it out and they have that ambition like you've talked about, and there's almost this like need to move in that direction. And it sounds like from the way you're talking about it, like, yeah, you were showing up and you were doing this stuff, but it really was kind of led by the universe, right? Like the universe was opening doors, you were getting nudges from other people, and you were like, okay, sure. And so I think there's something interesting about kind of being nudged and kind of led along like this, and then being able to make that transition to full-time musician, and not just like that this is where your time and energy and attention are going, but like you don't have a part-time job anymore. Like that, I think that's the dream for a lot of musicians. And it feels like you've kind of gone about it in a different way. And I'm curious, like, has that changed anything for you? Like not having the plan B or the backup plan?
Well, part of me wants to back up a little bit and actually, to speak more directly about the Enneagram. And
Mhm.
for me, like learning about my type largely from podcasts,
Yay.
some books, but largely from podcasts. And then going to workshops such as yours. And honestly, like the stuff that you've put out has been really impactful. And one of the things that you just kind of mentioned, I actually went back and re-listened to the type in relationships, the type
Yeah,
in
yeah.
relationship one. I just listened to it again because I've kind of been out of Enneagram world for a while. And so I was like, let's just drop back in. But one of the things that was really impactful for me was you talk about how like nines being in the body center, like we get these intuitive hits, but then we don't,
Mhm.
it's like they're not available for, our
Yeah.
use. And so we don't use them. And I was like, wait a second, you mean I know like the universe is like talking to me and I'm just ignoring it? And so I started, like, and this was also at a time, I mean, this was even just like a couple of years ago where I've been doing a lot of like self reflection and like,
Yeah. Yeah.
morning pages through the artist way and like just a lot of stuff to be very actively reflective about myself.
Yeah.
And um so I started, I was like, okay, what would it be like to just listen? Like
Mm.
how do I get these hits? I don't know. Let's just try to be like open and aware.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I would find it was so interesting. I would find that like I would wake up and like I don't typically remember my dreams very
Mhm.
much, but I would wake up and I'd be like, "Oh, I just thought about or I think I was dreaming about this person that I met that was like a producer or whatever." So I like texted him and I was like, "Hey, randomly thought about you. How are you?"
Yeah.
Leave it at
What's
that.
up?
And so it's anyway, and so like then we started a conversation and then I was like, I want to go record with this guy. So then I did. And
Yeah.
it was one of these things that like instead of like typically as kind of that artist hustle brain, I'd be like, okay, I need to find the best producer and do the thing. And it's all very like cerebral.
Yeah.
But so I was like, okay, so what if I'm just getting the messages? How do I be aware of them and act on them? And so how I've come to experience it is like it's like a seed will get planted
Yeah.
or a seed like appears, and then me being aware of it is like the planting to be like, okay, I
Yeah.
don't know if this thing's going to grow. I'm not in charge of that, but I'm going to take this thing and I'm just going to do one little step with it
Yeah.
and then like see what happens. And so it's been
Mhm.
really interesting. So the reason I mention that is because I really think from the time that like 2010, when I was like, okay, I'm doing this as a career, to now,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, it's like what I did was I made music a business.
Mhm.
And so the early days of like me being in college and songwriting and like going and playing coffee shops, and it wasn't about making money and it wasn't about having some kind of big career. It was just something I wanted to do and I was having fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then I made it a career.
Yeah.
And I started getting all these things that were like, "Oh, okay, it's like happening." And oh my God. So then it's like now I have expectations and now I have. And so
Mm.
what I'm now on the other side of is I'm like, oh, like in a lot of ways, the way in which I started kind of like cerebrally hustling about music
Mm-hmm.
kind of killed it.
Yeah.
Like to look at it from the outside, it didn't kill it. Like
Yeah.
we've built great things. It's,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but as far as my ability to trust myself as a creative, as far as
Yeah.
my desire to just like live as a vessel for music,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
that is what I've been digging out the
Yeah.
past few years.
Yeah.
And realizing that I'm like, oh, in a lot of ways, the things that have worked the best for me are when I actually just, it's like, I used to shame myself about things that came easily, that I
Mm.
didn't work for.
Yeah.
And now I'm realizing I'm like, oh, that was just me working with the universe. Like that was me being in flow.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be hard.
Yeah.
And actually, when it's hard, a lot of times there's red flags that we're ignoring.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's certain things that I
Yeah.
was like, oh my God, I had this great idea for a music video. And it was such a great idea. It was such a great idea. And I was so unwilling to see the red flags that when
Yeah.
the whole thing came back and bit me on the butt, and like thousands of dollars like misused, lost,
Yeah.
like relationship, and I was just like, what on earth? I finally had a good idea and I finally executed on it,
Mm.
and it wasn't it. Like, so
Yeah.
what's the learning? And I think the learning was, I was like, oh, I actually don't have to do that.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
like the universe is so much more creative than I am, and if I will just empty myself out so that I can hear that message, then
Yeah.
like that's the work.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's so interesting because I've known you for, a handful of years now, probably more through your brother at this point, because his kids and my kids went to the same elementary school, or at like very, very
Mhm.
small town Austin vibes here with these connections, which is fun. But I think when we start talking about the Enneagram, I think that there's this way that if you were just to stay with kind of the basic, like the kind of surface level description of the types, I think a lot of people would would label you like a 3, right? You're somebody
Yeah.
who's gotten a lot of success, right? You're very visible in what you do. You're, taking positions of leadership, and you laid out, at the beginning, like all the different things that you do, right? But I think it's really interesting to hear how it's actually the 9 that you resonated with the most, and like that's where your core kind of stuff lies. And so I'm curious, like, what for you about type 9 was like, oh, that's it?
So I'm trying to remember back. I mean, this was years ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was podcasts, and it was kind of when podcasts were like new.
Yeah.
So I don't know what year that
Exciting.
was.
Yeah. Not everybody had one.
What year was that? Um, Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know. I don't know how I like finally got into it. I know that people had mentioned the Enneagram like years before. And so again, like seeds. And
Yeah.
at some point I fell in. And so I had the same thought. So when I first started looking at it, I was like, oh, well, I'm a 3. Duh. I'm literally a performer.
Literally.
And so that was the thing. But then I started listening. I think there was a podcast that would have like multiple people talking
Mhm.
about what it is to be that type.
Yeah.
And this was probably around like 2017,
Yeah.
18, because I was doing a lot of touring. And so I would listen to podcasts like on planes.
Yeah.
And I remember listening to the 3 and I was just like, I'm not like, none of this resonates with me.
Yeah. Like, you're
You know,
not speaking my language.
yeah, I was just, I don't even remember anything in particular. It was just kind of like, I'm not like that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
operate in the world like that. I don't, because again, I'm not ambitious. I'm not
Yeah.
driven in that way. So
Yeah.
there was just something, and so I think I was just listening to all the types. And when the 9 started talking, they would talk about how like, I'll just like start a project at home, and then I'll like wander to another room, and then like I'll start something else, and then I'll wander elsewhere. And I was like, oh my God, that's me.
Yeah.
So I think that was, maybe it was just kind of like having some kind of experience where I was like, oh yeah, I do that. And so then I started learning more and learning more. And then I had that feeling of feeling seen and judged. You know, I was like,
And like it's
oh
gross, like,
God.
oh
Yeah.
yeah,
So then I was like, okay, I think I found it.
yeah. I think it's this one.
Yeah. I mean, but there's so many things. Like literally, I would say the Enneagram has been, I don't know. I mean, there's so many tools out there, and I kind of tell people, I'm like, look, if you don't like it, if it doesn't work for you, who cares?
Yeah.
You know, there's so many other tools out there. But I loved that the Enneagram, I feel like there's an easy way in, and then
Mhm.
you can get deeper if you want to.
Yeah.
Whereas something I've been learning more about recently is like astrology, and
Mhm.
there's just so much that my brain
There's
is like,
no
I
easy
don't,
way in.
there's no easy way in. I'm just
Yeah,
like, I mean, the easy way in, I guess, is just learning about yourself, like just focusing on like the
yeah.
one, but it's still like,
It's a
it's
lot.
so hard for me to like grasp
Yeah.
stuff.
It's
Um,
insane, and, like, Danielle, my wife, is, over the last several years, has gotten, like, very proficient with astrology, and, like, she integrates it into a lot of her tarot readings and all this stuff, and, like, we'll be having conversations, and she and I can speak Enneagram together, like, very well, right? Like,
yeah.
she's been into it since, we started dating, and all of a sudden, she'll just start saying astrology stuff, and I'm just like I have to, like, pause, and I'm like, What does that mean?"
Yeah.
Like, I don't like, it just
Yeah.
flies right over my head, and it's like, I've been listening and, like, trying to pick up on things, but yeah, that is a very, very deep well,
Yeah.
with no baby pool. It's like you just have to
There's
get
no
like,
baby.
you can read your, Channy horoscopes,
Uh-huh.
and that's fine, but if you wanna get into it, you go straight down, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's also fascinating. I mean, there's so much I've
Absolutely.
learned about astrology that I'm like, oh my God, wow, this makes so much sense. You know, and it's interesting just the interplay to learn about yourself from different angles, I
Yeah,
would call it. But anyway, so I do love that about the Enneagram, that I feel like there's an easy way in, and that if you
mhm,
want to go deeper, you can. And I went like super deep, and it's been so helpful for me to learn about myself.
mhm.
And it's also been very helpful for me to learn. And my wife, like I finally got Jody, my wife, into it. It was like for the longest time I'd say Enneagram, and you could just see she'd be like eye roll, right? And then she finally started getting into it.
Yeah.
And then it was so like understanding each other. I mean,
Mhm.
game changer, absolute game
Absolutely.
changer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the things that, like, I coach a lot of people who are like, "I love the Enneagram, and I wanna use it in my relationship. How do I get my partner on board?" And my answer is always like, "You don't."
Yeah.
Like, your partner has to get themselves on board, like, and I think the thing is, if you stick with it and they see it working for you, then
That's
they're
true.
like, "Okay." Like,
Yeah.
I'm seeing some shifts, I'm noticing some things, you're not doing you're able to take care of yourself better, right? And
Yeah.
then suddenly they're like, "Okay, like, this isn't total bullshit, like, I guess I'll check it out." And
Yeah.
then you get this language that you can share with each other that is so incredibly helpful in relationship. Like, like you said, it's a game changer, and,
Yeah.
like, Danielle and I talk all the time, like, we would not be able to remain together if it weren't for the language of the Enneagram. Like, we are
Yeah.
too different, have 2 different values, like, not, like, in a broad sense, but, like, in just the way that we orient ourselves to the world, it's very opposite. And
Yeah.
so it's like you need that translation piece,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Well,
so
I think that's what, you know, just like you said to your clients who are like, how do I get my partner on board or whatever? I think the thing that really, I was learning about it, I was excited about it. And when I started listening to types, because I was like, okay, what type is she? What do I think she is or whatever? And I
Mhm.
started listening to stuff, and she's a one. And I started listening to something on the one, and just understanding like how much that drive to be perfect is so, it's so like
Yeah.
that like it seeps out.
Yeah.
And so the idea that I was like, "Oh, like her judgment is not about me."
No. Yeah.
you know? And so
Oh man.
I don't have to like take it on and
Yeah.
then shame myself and use it as like a, you know, some way to bludgeon myself. You
Yeah.
know, so I developed so much understanding and compassion
Hmm.
for what she was going through so that I could be in a situation where yes, I did have culpability, but the way in which she might be communicating that was not all mine.
Yeah.
And so I think that allowed some space for us to start like moving through it together. And then, you know, she kind of got there when she got there.
Yeah.
But I was just like, I'm super into this, so I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
And then I
Well,
just brought it up enough. Maybe I whittled her down.
yeah, just
Maybe
slowly
that's
over
what it
time,
was.
just chipping away. I mean, eventually you say something enough, they're finally
They're
gonna be
like,
like,
okay,
all
fine.
right, like I'll figure it out. Well, so I mean, we're already talking about relationships, so let's rewind and let's talk about how you met your wife at the Catholic Center at UT.
That's a whole other podcast.
We can talk as long as you want.
Yeah, you know, it's I mean, it's all the things. Let's see. I was kind of, I wasn't a creeper, guys. But so I didn't really get involved in the Catholic Center till I was a junior.
Okay.
And so then I think I did 3 years. So I was like, at some point when I met her, I had actually graduated already.
Yeah.
But because I was still at my high school youth group until I was a junior, like I just
Yeah.
had so much of my time was going there. Anyway, the Catholic Center has this big retreat called the Longhorn Awakening.
Okay.
That's for people who are familiar. It's kind of like a walk to Emmaus retreat, or like, I don't know. It's a big like
Yeah.
wild retreat. There's literally 2 staff people to every retreatant. So it's like 180 staff people to 90 retreatants or whatever it is. And we
Whoa.
prepare for like 6 months. And there's all
Okay.
these staffs. There's like a cook staff and a music staff and like
Yeah.
there's parents, and then you have like godparents. It's a whole thing. So
Okay.
so I'm a junior. I've gotten into the Catholic Center, and so now I'm kind of in that mode, right? And so, you know, every retreat I'm like a different staff person or whatever. Anyway, essentially Jody and she first became aware of me when I was on the music staff. And I think I did a talk and I played music. We didn't really meet until the next year when we were on prayer staff together.
Okay.
And prayer staff is like a separate staff that like prays for the retreatants.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it's like a
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah. I mean,
So
I grew up like Southern Baptist. I know I like it wasn't in the Catholic space, but like I understand all of this.
yeah. So we were the godparents of the families, right? So there's like, you have a mother and a father, and then the retreatants are like the kids, right?
Oh God.
I know.
I love it.
Okay.
I love it. I mean, I hate it, but I love it.
So then, okay, so we meet on prayer staff, and it's kind of it's like an even more intense staff because you're only together with each other that whole weekend.
Mm.
You know, anyway, so it's kind of an intense staff, but essentially like we end up spending a lot of time together. We had a friend, Lauren. We were like a trio. We literally would go to adoration, which it's a Catholic thing essentially where you like spend time with Christ. It's kind of like being in the Garden of Gethsemane when Christ says like, can you wait an hour with me? And his disciples all fall asleep, and then he like kind of gets upset at them. He's like, what the hell? Like, y'all can't even sit an hour
Yeah.
with me, and I'm about to go give my life for you, you know? So the idea of adoration is that you go sit with Christ. And of course, Catholics believe that the consecrated host is both the body and
Yeah.
blood of Christ and bread, right? So anyway, we would go to adoration, which is where like this consecrated host is kind of like in a side chapel. And we believe that like Jesus is very truly present there.
Yeah.
And so we would go hang with Jesus in this side chapel, often with me and Lauren, and then I and Jody, and I would bring my guitar, and we would go to adoration like multiple times a week.
Yeah.
So we were like, oh my God, I'm so in love with Jesus.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. So, I mean, we were, you know what I mean? We were
Yeah.
like, it's very literally, like in the most literal sense, it is
Yeah.
literally Jesus' fault that we are together.
I love this. I love this. This makes my little queer Christian heart so happy.
So there's so much more to that story, but I think the main thing was we really, it was a whole journey. Yeah, I mean, it's like in hindsight, I've been so queer this whole time, but it took
Yeah.
me till I was 24 to realize it. And Jody was really the one who made me realize it. So I had had two boyfriends before that. And I
Mhm.
remember the last one that I had, the way I can describe it is like trying to love him was like trying to push start a train.
Oh
And
God.
trying not to love Jody was like trying to stop one.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
And
Yeah.
I couldn't stop it. I very much tried to pray my own gay away.
Mm.
I tried so hard to make it go away. So hard. I cried for like a year and a half. I would force myself to eat. I would lock myself in the bathroom at work and just cry. Um,
Mm.
I mean, I tried really hard to like not
Yeah.
be gay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And thank God it didn't work. I like Jody and I have such an incredible relationship at this point. We literally just celebrated our 8th wedding anniversary. We've been together
Awesome.
for 19 years.
That's amazing.
Um, and we're in like the best place that we've ever been.
Hmm.
After working really hard, I will say. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, right? Like
but
no relationship, you don't get there and it's easy, right? Like
yeah,
if the relationship's easy, it's not doing what it's meant to do, right? That's not to say that it should be hell, but it's always work, to
yeah,
show up and love someone and love yourself at the same time. Like that's and I think that's one of the things that one of the reasons why I love my job and my work is that through helping people understand themselves and understand the people around them, y you get a better opportunity to love people.
mm,
And, I love that story so much. If you're up for it, I'd love to kind of explore, what do you have faith now? What does that look
yeah.
like? What is it like? Because that it leaves this big question. You're like, "I'm in the best place best place in my life with this incredible relationship, this amazing partner." Where does that leave you in relationship to, what you believed or still believe?
Yeah. Yeah. So I will say that we were practicing. We would still go to mass with my parents up until 2021.
Yeah.
Was that when Roe fell?
Oh,
21,
Jesus.
21 or 22. It's one of those.
Yeah,
I feel like it's 21. So that was like the very big straw that broke the camel's back.
yeah.
And yeah, sorry. There's a lot there,
Yeah, there are
but
a lot of pieces. I totally
the
understand.
succinct version is that the Supreme Court broke my Catholicism.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
I mean, it's at the hands of our Catholic Supreme Court justices that
Yeah.
we did that. And so that was where I think I realized I was like, oh, okay. I've been like, oh, I have to be like a presence in the church. And, we were going to St. Austin's, which is actually a very like more like social justice oriented Catholic church.
Yeah.
Probably the only place in Austin that, I mean, of the other churches that I'd experienced, like that was it. Like
Yeah.
without St. Austin's, I don't think I would have been going
Yeah, absolutely.
to Catholic church. But because of St. Austin's, I was like, okay, like,
Yeah.
the community loves us. They'll, it's great. We're serving the homeless. We're out there doing the
Yeah.
thing. And I think when Roe fell, it's like
Mm.
seeing the Matrix. It's like suddenly zooming out and being like, oh,
Yeah.
the way that empire uses religion to
Mm.
control us is just like, it's not necessarily, I don't necessarily believe that I don't believe that faith is wrong or bad.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
believe that religion is wrong or bad. I believe that it's one of the most powerful tools
Mhm.
to unite humans and as a result it will be corrupted.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing. I mean, that is literally what we're witnessing. And so it's not that like I don't like I'm very compelled by the person of Christ.
Yeah.
It's not so it's like I don't necessarily identify myself as Christian mainly because of what people think of as
Yeah.
Christian. Like who are
Yeah.
Christians?
Absolutely.
Now, am I a follower of Christ? Am I compelled by the person of Christ 100%?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just now I'm at a place where I'm like I have zero desire to step inside a church and hear a man fumble through whatever talking points he's going to get through.
Yeah.
Like if we're not talking about, freeing Palestine and getting ICE off of our streets from kidnapping people, like I don't want to hear it. Like that if Christ were here, that's exactly what he'd be talking about.
Yeah.
So if we're not doing that, then I'm going to use my time and my faith in other ways.
Yeah.
And so like, I'm still, I should look up the attribution for this. I'm sure it's probably like a Buddhist saying or something.
Yeah.
That running towards and running away from are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a part of me that keeps that in my mind when I got to the point where I was like, F the church, I'm out, and I was like angry. I'm also done a lot of self-work and I'm kind of like waking up to my anger and I'm like,
yeah.
And then there's a part of me that reminds myself that I'm like, okay, just because you're now on a 180 it's still the same energy. It's just being used in a different direction. And so it's not actually different. And so I'm kind of like, what does it mean to actually allow that to transform my faith?
Yeah.
Not just be like, oh, well, now I know the right answer and it's this way.
Yeah. That's so powerful. And I think, I would say that my timeline is different, but my experiences are similar, right? And I know a lot of people, especially of the, the queer persuasion, whatever it may be, that, in so many ways they left the church in order to follow Jesus, right? Like there's a way in which we've seen over and over again how the institutional church is never what Jesus was trying to do to begin with, right? Like Jesus was trying to, flip the tables and trying to shift the way that we think about these things. And, I always say, like, if somebody asks if I'm a Christian, I'm always like, well, it depends on who's asking. Like, I hold that in reserve depending on who's asking and what the situation is, right? Like, what do you mean by that word? We gotta define our terms. But also the 8 streak in me is like, yeah, if an evangelical asks me if I'm a Christian, I'm gonna say absolutely. And then I'm gonna like force them to reckon with the fact that like, hey, it's bigger than you think it is. But I think that what you're talking about in this, like this directional thing, right? Either running towards or running away. Like there's something about, I use the phrasing like a change of direction without a change of heart.
Yeah, that's
right. And we see that happening all the time, especially as we've become so, divided with the rhetoric of what's going on in the world. Like people like might flip sides or whatever. It's like, but the energy is still the same. Like you said, it's still not the level of thinking or being that we want to be at, right? Like we need that change of heart. Right. Like, yeah, okay. I do think it's better that like you're putting energy towards, social justice and helping the homeless and, all of the things that literally we saw Jesus do. And how do we let that soften our hearts to make more room for all the people who it hasn't clicked for yet?
Yeah.
Right. How do we show up in this space without demonizing where we used to be? And yeah, I really appreciate your sharing of that story and that journey because it's powerful.
Yeah. And I think, I will say that one of the struggles that Jody and I, have reckoned with is like once we were kind of like, okay, we don't want to go to church. And what's interesting about our faith journey, and I actually liken this to, or I attribute this to having truly started our relationship very much, it was a very much a Christ-centered relationship.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yes, I thought I was so in love with Jesus and only Jesus, but I was also in love with Jody, like that both of those
Yeah.
are true.
Yeah.
But that foundation, as I look back on these almost 20 years, what's so interesting is we're often in the very same place
Mm.
spiritually, but for very different reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, and so we're able to actually walk a path together,
Mm.
even though the reason that we're in that, moment is actually super different.
Yeah.
It's just that our journeys like still align, and it's such a beautiful thing to, like I've never had to freak out and be like, oh my God, I don't want to go to church. I wonder if she does. And it's like, it's almost like not even a thing.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of like share. I'm like, hey babe, like I don't know. Like, I don't know if I went. And she was like, I'm in the same place. And then we have this conversation and we drop in about it. And, and so I think we decided, okay, we're not going to church anymore.
Yeah.
After having literally both been cradle Catholics and gone to church our entire lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, okay, well, that doesn't feel good. Like, what is our spiritual practice?
Mm-hmm.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I think for me, the great thing was I was so fed up with the church at that point that I was like willing to it was kind of like, all right,
Yeah.
I don't know, what else is out there? Like,
Yeah.
And so I went to this retreat called Music is Medicine by this really incredible artist. And I don't know, I'd almost consider him like a medicine worker. Like in the way that he does music is really more like medicine. And he had this retreat called Music is Medicine. And that was really life-changing. And I think I got introduced to like breath work and ecstatic dance and even just the rituals that we would do before, like, say, doing a breath work session.
Yeah.
I literally was sitting there and we're like all on, what was it? We have like, not sleeping bags, but basically we'd laid out, comfortable mats and stuff like that to lay out. And so everybody's packed in one room and we're all laying there and we're kind of like talking. And I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in high school youth group again. Yeah. And then we're like lighting Palo Santo, which I'm like, okay, there's incense. Yeah. And then we're like saying, you know what I mean? And I was just like, oh, it's all the same stuff. Like, yeah. Yeah. It's just a different flavor. It's like going to a different country and being like, oh, they have great food too. It's just different. It tastes different.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think for me, I was just sitting there like, oh, like I was able to see more of the kind of universality of the Catholic traditions and kind of like appreciate them in a new way. I mean, literally Catholic means universal. Like that's what Catholic Church means, universal church, and so it's like able to kind of appreciate the ritual that is actually common to all the major religions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And start to see that as like, oh, there is something inherently human about this. Yeah. And yes, we can corrupt the thing, but ultimately we're probably going to return to this. We're going to sing together. We're going to, we're going to hold hands and we are going to like be present with each other. We are going to, light a candle or incense and have our prayers go up into the heavens, like it's all the same stuff. And so I think I started to be able to like really appreciate my Catholic faith because I was outside of it.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more, even of just like the words of Christ that come back to me. And I'm like, oh, that's what he meant.
Yeah.
I never heard that. I never heard that from that version of what he was saying. I never understood that until now. Yeah. So I don't know. I think as far as like what our rituals are, we're still kind of in this place, but I think we're just less scriptive about it. Yeah. Yeah. Or prescriptive, whatever the word is.
Yeah. I love that. And it really, to me, both the way that you're talking about how you're relating to your faith now, but also like how, kind of the way you were talking about how your journey has really run in parallel with Jody's. And it really like it harkens back to what you were saying about like intuitively following those hits, right? That like something was pulling you through, like the universe is kind of making the path for you, right? And I don't know,
Mm.
that's just really, um, it's really beautiful, honestly. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
I'd love to like I would feel upset if we didn't get a chance to actually talk about, your nonprofit and a lot of like the activism work that you're doing now, through your platform and through your music. So anywhere you want to jump off into that space, I think would
Yeah.
be lovely to hear about.
Yeah, so I think so. I did mention so Niñas Arriba is the college fund that Jody and I started. We went to El Salvador in 2009 to 2010. Is that right? 2008. Oh my God. That's what happens in time. I'm like, what is
Something.
time? What is time? It's a constant. Anyway, so we went, yeah, 2009 to 2010. We were there for almost a year. And anyway, so we started this college fund and we've kind of done like benefit concerts and stuff like that ever since. And we've put 7 young women through like a 5-year program at the top rated Catholic university in El Salvador. We lived in this like gang dominated part of El Salvador. Obviously, El Salvador has been back in the news,
Mhm.
and like CCOT, for instance, was built because of the gang problems
Yeah.
that El Salvador had, and Bukele cleaned up the streets by basically getting rid of due process and just jailing anybody that,
Yay.
yeah. And I will say that something that people don't know is that the reason there are gangs in El Salvador is because in the 80s, El Salvador and some, I think, other countries in Central America, there was a civil war.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people were fleeing the country and they were landing in places like LA, where they learned gang culture
Yeah.
on our streets. And then the government, in order to solve this problem, started deporting children of migrants from places like El
Mhm.
Salvador who had grown up on the streets and started tagging and running with gangs, who were American citizens. We were deporting children of immigrants who were American citizens to a country that they never knew.
Yeah.
So we were deporting gang members to El Salvador, which was war torn.
Yeah.
And so it was like a petri dish for gangs
Yeah.
to take hold. So we deported gang culture to El
Mm.
Salvador. That is why there are gangs
Yeah.
in Central America. And so that's just a little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
So anyway, we go to this gang dominated part of El Salvador called Soyapango, and we have this just incredible time. We're working in an all girls school, serving these young women, teaching English.
Yeah.
Because at some point they found out I was a musician, and so like every time we'd walk into class, they'd be like, "Que cante, que cante," like, we just like sing, right? So I'd have to be like, "No, we're gonna learn today." And of course we would play music and all this kind of stuff, and it was an incredible experience.
Mm.
The nuns, I mean, that's a whole other thing. They're strict and wild and crazy, like they're all the things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think our job was really to kind of run interference between the nuns and the girls that lived at the school, which was
Yeah.
like a small portion of the girls that we basically lived with. And we kind of tried to let them have a childhood. And so we'd play basketball with them, and we'd,
Yeah.
bring them something other than beans and rice, which they literally ate every day. So we'd go get like hamburger meat, and we'd made hamburgers, and
Mm-hmm.
we get
Yeah.
pizza, or like watch a movie or whatever.
Yeah.
And so that was like, they were like our sisters. And so at the end of the time, Jody had this idea. She was like, hey, what if we started a college fund? And I was like, how do we even do that? And she was like, doesn't matter.
I like that answer. It doesn't matter.
We asked our senior class, we were like, who wants to go to college? And 32 girls raised their hand. And we asked them who's going to college, and 32 hands drop. Oh. And it's a culture that doesn't value higher education for women, and even if they did, they would definitely send their boys if they have boys versus their girls if they had the money. Anyway, so we were like, okay, we could do this. How do we do this? And so we started doing like benefit concerts and stuff. And so that's kind of been the thing. It's very small, but because like we know these young women, they're like our sisters. And they are incredible. Like we've just given them a door to walk through, essentially. But our college, our fund actually supports kind of, it's not just academic like tuition and books, but we also it's room and board. So we have like an apartment that they stay in. We there's actually like a program, essentially like a wraparound service that we're like funneling money into. So we're like a scholarship for a program that already exists. And so that way they have, they've got mentors, and there's, requirements to do community service and like stuff like that that's already kind of built into the program. Yeah. And so we just essentially fund like Niñas Arriba scholars to be part of this program. So it's really cool. These young women are awesome. It's continuing, and we will have more benefit concerts. We kind of like hiatus during COVID and everything. And so we're still kind of slowly getting back to it. But for those wanting to contribute, like it's out there. It's a constant ongoing fund. 100% of our proceeds actually go to these young women.
It's awesome.
So yeah, it's great. And then I would say, as far as my activism with music, this is definitely something that, like I talked about at the beginning, where I'm kind of on seeing the bookends of the time that I got back from El Salvador, decided, hey, I'm going to actually do this as a career, to, about 2021, 22, and realizing, I hustled and like definitely gained stuff in that hustle. But the thing that I lost was like, my creative mojo.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I feel like the phase I'm in right now is rediscovering that. And as I'm, again, kind of am able to choose other than my default 9-ness, as I'm able to like see my anger for what it is, not fall into the anger, but allow it to guide me. Yeah. I am more in a place to be like, oh, hell yeah. I'm going to, like, I have a platform, I have a microphone, and we are going to use that for good. And like, go out and actually be excited to get on stage in front of, in front of the Texas Capitol, in front of 5,000 people, and write a song that's like, what would an anthem sound like now? Yeah. And so I'm in, like, that's the space I'm in right now, which is exciting.
That's awesome. Oh, I love that so much. Well, Gina, how can my listeners get in touch with you, connect with your work? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So, GinaChavez.com. I will say that Instagram is my platform of choice. However, the billionaires, so I'm kind of, I still like Instagram messaging is great. I love when people send me messages. At some point, I will likely transition to doing stuff that's more like an email list, and maybe only communicating in that kind of way. So, I might even be pulling my music from Spotify. Those are all things that are in motion. But for now, I'd say Instagram, and, find me on GinaChavez.com. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Gina, seriously, thank you so much. I've just been so blown away by all of the interviews that I've gotten the opportunity to chat with so many incredible people and hear so much about like your life and your journey and I didn't know where this conversation was going, and I loved everywhere we ended up. So thank you so much for being so open and vulnerable and sharing so much of yourself with me and with my listeners. I've just thank you so much.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the opportunity. And, honestly, I actually think that I know for a fact that like a lot of the content that you've put out, I mean, it's stellar. Like it's so good.
Thank you.
And it's
Thank you.
really helped me learn about myself, learn about my wife, and be able to, what is it? Awareness brings choice, brings freedom. And that idea,
Mhm.
like that has, I mean, it's really changed my life. So um I'm happy to be part and yeah,
Yeah.
consider this a thank you. So
Oh, thank you so much, Gina. Well, there you have it, folks. What an incredible time getting to hear about Gina's story, the work that they're doing in the world, how they're showing up to music and to faith and to activism. Such a gift. I do feel very, very grateful to consider Gina a friend. So thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Gina or Gina's music, definitely click the link down below to navigate over to her website. If you're enjoying this podcast, please do the like, share, comment, subscribe thing on YouTube and leave a rating or review in your podcast app if you're listening to the audio only version. I will also say if you navigate over to my podcast page on my website, then you have the opportunity to sign up to support the podcast. So if you would like to financially support the podcast for as little as one coffee a month, there's like, I guess two if you get cheap coffees. Where are you getting your coffee? I don't know. $8 a month, you can be a supporting member of this podcast and help me continue making this podcast for as long as I can keep finding cool people to interview. You'll get access to all of my archived writing and blogs and poetry and things that I've been putting out over on Substack for quite a while. And next week, we're going to have a subscriber only interview that comes out. There'll be a shorter version that comes out for everyone to listen to, but then subscribers will get the full version with my guest next week, Nian Vuong, who is an incredible Enneagram teacher. So if you want to hear the full version of that interview, definitely head over to my podcast page on Substack and click subscribe. Don't forget Enneagram office hours on Monday, November 3rd. Free event. Come hang out, ask your questions, meet other people who are into the Enneagram. And Enneagram Expedition registration closes on December 18th. Be sure to sign up for that. All the links are down below. And until next time, don't forget to breathe.